everyone, today we're going to be learning another way to solve quadratics. So far we've learned how to solve quadratics by factoring. We've also learned how to solve quadratics using square roots, or what we call algebraically. So today we're going to learn completing the square. This is a concept that you learned back in Algebra 1. I think this is the longer one. You've got kind of 5 steps to solve here. If you get those 5 steps down, it becomes an easier process. So here's our first problem. It says solve x squared minus 12x plus 4 equals 0 by completing the square. Now, if you look at this problem here, there are no two numbers that multiply by 4 and add to negative 12. So we cannot factor here. We can't solve algebraically because there's an x squared and an x value. All right, so with both of those fail, all right, we're going to use the completing the square process. What I want you to make 2 columns in your notes for me. The first column is going to be all the steps. And the second column is going to be the process. We're actually going to do it with this example problem. So go ahead and pause this video, and I want you to write down all the steps. So the steps are get the x's alone. Number 2 is factor the a value if needed. This won't be always the thing that we have to do based on if there's an a value. Number 3 is you're going to add the b divided by 2 squared to both sides. That's your part of actually completing the square. Number 4, you're going to factor the trinomial you see, and then you're going to solve for x using your algebraic means. So I know that's a lot to throw at you, but I will promise you it'll make more sense when we dive into the problem. So step 1 says get the x's alone. So look at our problem here. Are the x's alone? And the answer is no, that 4 is there. So we're going to subtract that 4 over. So I would have x squared minus 12x equals negative 4. Okay, we've completed that. Awesome. Step 2 is to factor the a value if needed. Well, look there. My a value is 1, so I don't need to factor it out. So in this problem, it's not needed. Okay, because my a value is 1. All right, up next is add b divided by 2 squared to both sides. So if I do x squared minus 12x, okay, and negative 4, I have to add this value of b divided by 2 squared to both sides. So here's how I do this. All right, my b value here is negative 12. So on the side, I'm going to say negative 12 divided by 2 squared. Well, negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 squared is 36. Okay. So now I've got the x squared minus 12x plus 36 equals negative 4 plus 36. And the reason why this is okay mathematically is because we add the same value to both sides, so we're technically not changing the value of the equation at all. Now it says we need to factor the trinomial. So let's factor that x squared minus 12x plus 36. So you're looking for two numbers that multiply to 36, but add to a negative 12. To me, when I think about it, it comes out to x minus 6, x minus 6. That's how I would factor that. I'm going to quickly add those numbers over here. So negative 4 plus 36 is 32. I can rewrite this actually, because if I have x minus 6 times x minus 6 itself, another way I could write this is x minus 6 squared equals 32. So we have now officially completed the square. The reason why, because we complete the square, because by the end we get this trinomial will go to a nice squared value there. That's the whole point of this process. So now from here we're going to solve for x. And the great thing is we can solve by algebraically because it's x minus 6 squared, so we can work backwards and unsolve. So what I would do first is I would take the square root of both sides. So I would get x minus 6 equals plus or minus square root of 32. I'm going to go ahead and reduce that 32 real quick. 32 can be broken up into 16 and 2. The square root of 16 is 4, so I'd say this is x plus or minus 4 radical 2. I'm going to add that 6 over. So my final answer is x equals 6 plus or minus 4 radical 2. Okay, so the big part here is completing square is steps 3 and 4. All right, let's try another one. Solve for x squared minus 3 equals 3x by completing the square. So remember, our first step here, right, is to get the x's alone. The x's are not alone here. We need to move that 3x over, and we need to move that 3 over. So when I do that, I get x squared minus 3x equals 3. Step 2, remember, was to factor out an a value. We don't have an a value, so we can skip over that step. Step 3 is to add that b divided by 2 squared value to both sides. If I do that right in that problem here, negative 3 divided by 2 squared, negative 3 divided by 2 squared. Now this is a fraction, reason being our b value is an odd number, so when we try to divide that by 2, we weren't going to get a very nice number here, but we can still do this problem. So now I've got x squared minus 3x. If I do negative 3 over 2 squared, negative 3 over 2 times negative 3 over 2 would give me positive 9 over 4. Now we have to factor our trinomial. So now that we've done that, we can factor our trinomial. We're going to be trying to factor this guy right here. Now the good thing is we know it's going to happen something where it's x and a number and it's going to be squared. We just got to figure out what that is. So we're looking for numbers. When I multiply them, it gets me 9 over 4, but that adds to negative 3. Now here's a shortcut of how this happens. Okay, this will always factor to x plus or minus, depending on the sign, b divided by 2. Always. And the sign is based on what your b value is. So if I have x, my b value is negative 3. So negative b divided by 2 would be my factor there. Equals, I have 3 plus 9 over 4. If I add this up, I get 21 over 4. From here, we have to solve for x. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Let's see if we can simplify either of those. Square root of 21. I don't think the square root of 21 can be reduced at all. But the square root of 4 I do think can be reduced. I think the square root of 4 would change just to 2. I'm going to add that 3 halves over. All right, so that could be my answer. You could leave it as 2 separate fractions. If you wanted to, you could combine it into one large fraction, since they have common denominators there. I would take either of those answers. Most of the time on most of my homeworks or worksheets, you're probably going to see me write it as one big fraction in the end. All right, last one we have to talk about is when we have an a value, because we haven't really seen an example when we have an a value. Now, I'm not going to lie here. The a value makes it a little bit lengthier of a process. All right, this is an important step that we have to follow. So first couple steps are the same thing. All right, we have to make sure that we get the x's alone, all right, and factor out the a values in step 2. So to get the x's alone, I have to distribute here. So I would get 4x squared plus 16x plus 1 equals negative 16. To get the x alone, I'm going to subtract that 1 over. So I've got 4x squared plus 16x equals negative 17. All right, now my x's are alone. Step 2 is to factor out the a value. My a value is 4, so I'm going to pull out that 4. So I get x squared plus 4x equals negative 17. Step 3 is to add that b divided by 2 value. So we need to add your b divided by 2 squared value to both sides. Now here's the catch though. Since we pulled out that a value of 4, we have to represent that 4 over on our other side, because that 4 can't just disappear. It has to be on both sides. So you have to, when you add that b divided by 2 squared value, you have to put it right out in front. Because technically, we're not adding just this 4 divided by 2 squared value. We're doing that times 4. All right, that's what that value actually is. So you have to accommodate for that, and you have to represent that a value on both sides of your equation. From here, we can go back and do what we were normally doing. All right, I've got 4 times x squared plus 4x. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. Okay, I've got got 4 times. If I factor this, remember it's always your x plus your b divided by 2 value. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so I know this is 4 times x plus 2. Oops, sorry, that's supposed to be squared. Negative 17 plus 16 would just be negative 1. From here, we're going to solve for x. I would first divide both sides by 4. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Simplify those square roots if possible. Can we simplify the square root of negative 1? Yes, we can because of our complex numbers. That is just I. Square root of 4 is just 2. Subtract that 2 over. So my final answer would be negative 2 plus or minus I divided by 2.